Hey Nadine, welcome to our episode of The Door is Always Open.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, today we're going to talk a little bit about styling. And you started here as a model, right? A few years ago.
Yeah, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, during the Pro Imaging, you needed a model, and I thought, oh yes, Frank Dorff needs a model. This is my chance. So I took my chance, and I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still here because you made me a promise, I think 2 years ago, that every shoot you would come here, that you would improve yourself in styling.
Yes, so what did I do myself? But I did, yes.
Yeah, and up until now she really does. So every time she's here, I love it because you are so extreme in styling. And now slowly you're moving more into the styling business, right?
Yes, that's true. I'm becoming older and older. And
we all have that problem.
yeah, but as a model, it's very difficult to model if you are older. I'm doing well still, but I don't know for how long. And I really love styling. I love turning something or someone else in something totally different. And I love to go very extreme. I'm a huge fan of fantasy stories and people like Tim Burton and Helena Bonham Carter, Johnny Depp. They really inspire me. Also, my own sister, who makes animations and movies, she's a big inspiration. So that's
yeah. We did a photo shoot once with your sister, and you in superhero outfits, right?
Yes, I remember.
Near a nuclear plant.
Yeah.
Okay, now Nadine, a lot of the photographers out there watching, some are professional photographers and some are just starting out. Now they do spend some money on their photo shoots and their gear. What I always say is stop spending money on gear, start investing in styling, makeup artists. And what's your take on that?
I think that's true. I think it's important to learn the different facets of the photography. Styling is very important because if the light setup is very simple, you still can make a huge, big, fantastic photo because of the styling and the model. And it's just it. It just has to fit. That's the most important thing. And I know it's when you start, it's difficult to see what fits, but when you practice a lot, you start to see that.
Yeah, what I found out especially in the start of my photography career, doing models, of course, I started out with all the different kind of backgrounds. I bought more backgrounds. Then I started buying props, and somehow it still was the same model in a different background, a different prop, on a different chair, on a different bed. And finally I found out it doesn't work anymore because my lighting increased and I got more and more into lighting. And then suddenly I started realizing, well, now if I start working with a hairdresser, and for me that was the turning point, starting working with a hairdresser, because they're so extreme with all the hairstyling. And I found out that the most simple light setup, just one light or maybe 2 or 3 lights, but a simple light setup, and it made a huge difference because there really was something to photograph. It's not about the props or the color of the background or the new light setup. It was all about the storytelling. And I know that you are very big on your inspiration in storytelling, like what you said, Tim Burton. And can you explain a little bit more to people who want to start out with that, where to get their inspiration?
Well, what I did when I started was Google a name, your favorite actress or your favorite photographer, or just a word like lingerie, flowers, and then fashion after it. Or and you find examples and you can make a mood board of it. That's where I started, and that's how I started. And well, I make the map in my computer, and when I had a shoot, I went through it and I looked for everything what I liked, and I make a mood board, and then I go looking at the markets, supermarkets, clothing, second-hand markets.
Second-hand stores.
Doesn't matter, trash.
And nowadays you can use Pinterest, of course, and make mood boards. And you can share them between your model, your makeup artist. And you can add stuff to it. For example, this is your shoot. And now you can add images to Pinterest and you can share it between the team so everybody's updated. Now, you already said the trash. Because some people out there will think that styling will cost enormous amounts of money.
Well, that's not true. It's not what you use, it is how you use it. Sometimes a photographer takes a beautiful designer dress with $10,000 or euros, doesn't matter, and a model, nice light, and still it doesn't work quite because it's not a total package. And if you use newspapers or trash bags and the light is cool and the background is cool and the model is cool and the expression and it's dynamic, everything fits. It's very important, and I think that that's the art of photography.
Yeah, when you look at what I did in the past, I did some images with Corinne with just a wooden pallet which I put my feet in, made a hole in it, and Corinne was behind it screaming. I did something with Marie with just toilet paper, nothing more, only toilet paper, strong colors. Now, a while ago I got a phone call from the Dutch DeLorean Club. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that.
And they said, do you want to make pictures from DeLoreans? And there are some times when you just think, you know what, making pictures of DeLoreans, I don't even have to think about it, I'm going to do it. And I said, I want to do it, but I want to do it my way. So I want to have a model there. And they were, of course, expecting a model in bikini, laying on the motor hood and doing stuff like, oh baby, this and that. And then you came in, and I know that they were totally blown away, because at first it was, well, do you need to use my DeLorean? I believe at the end, I think we can now use 20 DeLoreans or so whenever we call.
I think so. And that was also a big example of teamwork, because most of times the concept is mine, but not all the times. I asked you, what do you want to see? And you said, well, steampunk is really something what I want to see and what I want to do. So I went through that and internet, Google, steampunk, and made a mood board, and you had some examples, and that fits together. And that's also important. It's not always the stylist or always only the model or who decides. It's a team, so you have to do it together. And I think that's important, that you put your own thing in it with and as a team.
Yeah, now people are seeing the images on screen, and now what was the total cost of the shoot? There were, like, I believe 3 outfits, and what was the total cost for you?
I think maybe all the things I already used, so maybe 10 euros.
10 euros.
Not more.
And when you would have only bought it for that use, 100?
No.
Less?
Less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, you know, because styling doesn't have to be very, very expensive if you know what you're doing. So go to your second-hand stores, look on the internet, and try to get stuff as cheap as possible. And my philosophy is always, if you think it's too much, go one step higher, and then another step higher, and then you're probably there for a cool photo shoot. And Nadine, we're going to do something today, and we're going to show some images maybe from that. But we're going to do something in about a week, which we also going to film for The Door Is Always Open. Can you tell us a little bit, because that will be the next segment. So maybe you introduce the next segment to our viewers. He's thinking about it, you know, because he's still in development.
Yeah, I think we have to surprise them. It's not always simple to do the styling, and next week we're gonna do something what's not simple. A lot of hours of work. It's like kindergarten.
Playing around.
Yeah, playing around. A lot of glue and paper and a lot of tape and things like that, and lights, and well, you're gonna like it. We're gonna rock. But
it's gonna be a little bit about the robots, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that will be the next segment. So the robot team will be in our next segment, and the location is stunning, but you're gonna see that after this break. Okay, very quick tip about shooting in a tight situation. Now, at home you probably don't have a big studio, but you will probably have a wall somewhere. And now a lot of people will complain that, well, when I have a wall at home, I can't have a big studio because I don't have the space to go back or forward. Now, my model is standing against the wall, and in this case it's just wallpaper. And what I'm holding here is the new Canon strobe, the 600 EXRT, and that's a radio triggered strobe. And on here is one of my favorite modifiers ever. It's called the Flashbender from Rogue Expo Imaging. Now, the main advantage of this one, it's like a big bounce card, but you can really bend it any way you want. And I always call this bending the light. Now, when you are very tight in your space, you can of course stand like here, aim it towards your model, and you will have a very nice flat image quality. However, I'm going to show you a very quick tip about walking around your model. And normally I will shoot with a light meter, and I'm going to show you that you can also shoot ETTL. And with this kind of stuff, you can work very, very fast. So even if you don't have a lot of time, just let somebody hold the strobe, rely on ETTL, and in Photoshop you have to change it a little bit exposure-wise, but you can make images very, very quickly in a tight space. So Carmen, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. So we're going to try some shots here. Okay, so now we have Simone here, and Simone is my intern for 6 months, yes? And she's holding the strobe, and the first thing I'm going to do is a very simple setup. And this is not so very nice. It's flat light, some people will love it, but for me it's a little bit too standard. So, first image, just flat light. You can aim it at Carmen if you want, a little bit higher. Very nice. There we go. Very cool. Carmen, look a little bit that way. Always watch for the shadows and this kind of stuff. Very nice. Okay, there we go. Aim it just a little bit down and up. Now the first thing I can do is of course stand here and shoot. But that's not really interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot under an angle. There we go. And now I have a beautiful lens flare in my image because I get a lot of light hitting the lens, and that gives a really nice and intense image. And when I move to portrait mode, the lens flare will be a little bit less. And you can control your lens flare by moving the strobe up. Can you do it a little bit up? Thank you very much. Very nice. There we go. So by moving the strobe up and down against the wall, you can control your lens flare. And lens flare is something that can be very nice in image, but it can also destroy an image, so be careful with it. Oh, and by the way, I shoot on manual mode, ETTL. So you can set everything you want on the camera, in this case 6.3, 125th of a second, manual mode. And the strobe will figure out through the ETTL system what the exposure will be. So, this is the Rogue Flashbender tip for this time, and maybe we'll have one for you the next time. Hey, and welcome on location for this episode of The Door Off Is Always Open. Now, in the previous part we talked about styling with Nadine. Now we're on location and we're in a beautiful building. They make all kind of materials here, and this is one of the machines I'm going to use for the first set. And Nadine is now doing the styling, and the styling she's going to do is a robot style. So it's very cool, but I will walk you through the set first. The first thing I do is my main light setup, and that's this one. This is a Ranger, an Elinchrom of course, with a maxi light and a white grid. Now the white grid has a big advantage. With the black grid you have a very narrow beam of light, and that's beautiful because you can really point out your model. However, with the white grid the edges are a little bit less harsh, so you can get a beautiful light quality. And of course the maxi light will give you a lot of light output, and it's a beautiful light source. So this is my main light. Now we're gonna go here. And this is the Quadra, of course also the Elinchrom. And I'm using an A-head on it without any modifier. I want a little bit of lens flare maybe in my lens, so without modifier I can really get a wide beam of light and catch something in my lens. And this will be pointed as an accent light on Nadine, and Nadine will be standing on the stairs in a moment. And of course we want a little bit of move in the image. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a smoke machine, and you can see that there. We use another Elinchrom Ranger, also with an A-head connected, and we have a red gel on it. Because when you use smoke, it's very nice to backlight the smoke. However, when you backlight it with white light, it's a little bit boring. So what I try to do is I use a red gel and to give the smoke a little bit of an accent. So we're gonna look how Nadine is doing her styling, and then we're gonna go to the photo shoot. Okay, welcome to the second setup. Nadine is gonna climb in there. Are you sure? Sure. Okay. And we're gonna use an Elinchrom Ranger, and again with the A head and the maxi light, and again with the white grid. Now what I want to do is I want to overpower the ambient light. So I'm gonna shoot on f16, f22 on ISO 50 on the medium format camera. So what I'm gonna do is actually I'm gonna really let my model pop out. So the sky is gonna be darker, and of course this is very, very reflective. So it will give you a beautiful image, we hope. So Nadine, are you ready to go up?
I'm ready.
And you have some very nice shoes, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Very fitting to the location. So guys, we're gonna shoot some images here, and let's call this fashion with some reflection. Okay, so this is the third setup, and now some people will complain like, you know, I don't have a nice location and I need something like the Taj Mahal to make a nice image. Well, actually, when you look around, you can make images almost everywhere. As long as you control your light, and of course you have a nice styling, because as we talked about in the studio, styling is one of the most important things. You can make the most beautiful light setups, but if your model is just standing there in jeans and a top, you will get a mediocre image. Unless, of course, it's a beautiful jeans and top. So now we have beautiful styling here, and we have just a very simple setup. It's like an alleyway. It's really dirty and it's cold, right? Yeah, it's a little bit cold. And what you're gonna see is we're gonna use one light source only. It's again the Elinchrom the Elinchrom Ranger with a maxi light and the white grid. So it's the same setup as before. And you will see that we transform this simple alleyway into something different. However, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna overpower the ambient light. So I'm going to shoot on f11 ISO 50. So the sky will be still a little bit blue, but the background will be really nice and dark. so now we're going to do the last setup. And the last setup, I'm going to just shoot natural light. I'm going to shoot wide open with the medium format, and with this lens that's 3.5. I'm going to just let my model walk, and we're going to make some images from that. But first I have some tips. When you're on location, like we're here, we're in an abandoned building, a lot of buildings actually, and some buildings are closed off. As you can see, there are those yellow ribbons, and it's no access, asbestos. And now some people will say, you know, whatever I do to get the shot, because it's beautiful in there, don't go there. You only have one health, and when that's gone, you can't make any images anymore. So there will be other options, but please, if there's something like forbidden and you're in an area like this, don't go in there. Now, when you're in an area like this, everything is a little bit dirty. So what I always do is I wear very old, like trousers, very old shirts, so I can sit on the floor. Now, here you can just sit on the floor, it's just stones. But inside, it's a little bit dusty, and you don't know what's on the floor. So what I always do is I bring a little towel with me, and I can sit on it. Or you can bring a blanket or whatever. Just sit on it, and don't sit directly on the floor. And one final tip. Normally, I love to shoot tethered. In the studio, we shoot tethered, and of course also on location. Now, because we move around a lot, it's a very, how do you call it? It takes a lot of time to bring your laptop everywhere and your tether table. So I'm very happy now with the Leaf Credo. This is the new Leaf Credo, and you finally have a display on the back that's even better than my DSLR. So I have a very bright display, and I can see all the images I'm shooting. I can double click and I can see it 100% to check focus. So this is really cool. So are you ready for the final shots?
I'm ready.
Okay, we're gonna do the final shots. Hey guys, we have a photo shoot in a few moments with the client, and it's going to be outside. And now a lot of people ask me, how do you work outside? Now, the first thing I always do is I shoot tethered. Well, in most situations. Sometimes, and you've seen a video in this episode where I didn't shoot tethered, but actually normally I will shoot tethered. Now, why do I shoot tethered? Very simple. I see the images coming in, I can check focus, I can check my composition, and of course I immediately have a backup and my client can look. The software I use on location is Capture One or Lightroom. So I shoot directly in the computer and I can see the images. Now, today I'm going to use the Canon, and I just want to give you a very quick rundown of the gear I use on location for tethering. So the first thing I use is the so-called tether table. It's this one. I use a anti-slip mat on it, so my laptop won't fall off and won't be damaged, and a secure strap. And with the secure strap I can fasten the laptop. Now here you see the Morse strap. You can put your power adapter in there from your laptop and run it through an external battery, or you can just run it to the power outlet. The nice thing about the tether table is it's very lightweight, and it will fit on almost any tripod or studio stand you have available. And of course, on this side, I have extra room for a hard drive, and here I can hang my light meter on. Now, normally on location, what's very important is that you have to be secured to your camera. There's a lot of people walking around, and sometimes somebody will stand on your cable and it will be yanked out of your port. And in this case, that will be a disaster. You're not only losing your images, but you will also destroy the port on your camera. And that's about, in the Netherlands, a 350 euros repair. So what I use is the so-called jerk stopper. Now this is a very simple device. It hangs from your camera, and you can still use a strap on it. That's no problem at all. And it's also on the cable. It's this little device. And it just clicks together. And now you can put it in your USB port. Now when somebody is standing on your cable, you will feel the snap in your camera. And you can of course react, don't drop your camera. But it won't be yanked out of your port. So in other words, your port will be saved. Now some people will connect the USB extension cable with this one, and they will tape it down. Don't do that. Losing your images isn't that important. You can shoot them again. However, if you tape them together and the jerk stopper is really tight, and if you have the same part on your computer, that's also really tight. So when somebody's standing on your cable, two things can happen. One, you drop your camera, and you don't want that. That's very expensive. Or, because there's a lot of tension on the cable, your laptop will fall down. And that's also very expensive. So one thing, never connect this part with the extension cable with tape. Leave it loose, because then if you have tension, this one will just disconnect from your extension cable and you will only use the images that are in the pipeline at that moment. Connect it back in and you can shoot again. Now you see that I'm still using the black one at this moment, but I'm switching. Tether Tool released this one, and this is the high visibility orange cable. And because I'm from the Netherlands, it's orange, so I'm using the orange cables from now on. Now the orange cable, and you see it already, it's the high visibility cable, meaning if it runs over the ground, people can see it and they won't step on it. The black ones, they don't see. So that's what I use on location. And I have one final tip for you guys. You see the Morse strap here for your power adapter? If you're like me, mountain biking, and you have your iPhone for GPS, or you're biking anyway, and you have your iPhone for GPS or an Android, you can also use an extension battery pack and mount it here, mount it on your bike, and you can use the Morse strap also for your sports. So we're back, and I hope you liked the photo shoot. And now my studio got broken.
Oopsie.
I have to buy a new chair. Thank you. Okay, so now we're back in the studio, and I hope you liked the segment with the robot style. Now, I want to talk to Nadine a little bit about some images we did in the past and that really made some waves on the internet. And a few of those images even ended up in magazines like Fuji commercial, Ellen Groen brochure in the Netherlands. And some people might think that when you see these images, they really are expensive or they're really difficult to make. But I think Nadine will explain a little bit about it. So let's start out with the images you see now, and it's the image we used on the Ellen Groen folder. It's, I believe, a wedding dress and some stuff you normally hang in front of windows?
No, not even a wedding dress. It's only stuff hanging around the windows. So it didn't cost anything, nothing.
Okay. Now what I did during one of my Photoshop World seminars about styling, getting the shot on a budget, what I told people, first I showed the image, and because around your face we used a wind machine from low under, and somehow it was a beautiful design and it just fell right during the wind, and we did a lot of shots that didn't work out. And I asked people, okay guys, let's do an auction. What do you think this dress cost? And I started out with, who says it's more than $600? And almost everybody raised their hand. It was like, yeah, it has to be more than 600. I think we ended up at some people still believing it was more than $10,000.
Yeah.
And then I told them it's about €5. And the nice thing is the whole attention of the crowd was totally fixed to the screen after that. And we showed some more images and explaining how cheap the styling can be. However, creativity, of course, can be cheap.
Yeah.
And now we go to the next image, and this is one of the images you took, which ended up actually for a Fuji commercial. And you see the balloons, you see some stuff again that's hanging around windows. Somehow you have something with windows, right?
Yeah. Well, I like, I just like big and dresses, and big dresses are
expensive.
Expensive. So only thing you can do is make them yourself.
And making a dress can be with anything. Because if you look sometimes on the catwalks, you see stuff walking around that I think it's, well, it's nothing more than indeed window or curtains or whatever. But it looks nice because the whole atmosphere around it is nice. Now, when we look at the next image, the only thing you actually see as an accessory, that's a window. I went to an old, how do you call that? It's a it's a place, it's not even a store, but they have all the wood that's been taken out of buildings. And they just place it there, and I'm always going there and they already know my face, and it's like, hey Frank, what are you looking for? And I saw this window, and the only thing actually you do is you use the same dress as you did with the Ellengrom image, and you're just standing behind it.
Yeah,
a little bit of light.
It was just a petticoat, not more.
Just a petticoat.
Just a petticoat, yeah.
And some film material, and we're there.
Yeah.
A little bit of wind, and that's how easy it can be, right?
Yeah, no, well, it sounds easy, but it's a lot of creativity, and
yeah, that's what I meant. It's
yeah.
easy in the dressmaking
Yeah.
or whatever you do, but it's the creativity and the styling, the whole lighting, the finding out what works, and that's the thing that costs.
Yeah.
That's why stylists are so expensive, because they have to be like in their head. There has to be a switch that turns from normal creativity into hyper creativity.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, what I always say is, when you look at your team, you have like a huge amount of photographers, and a little bit of them are really great photographers. Then you have like a huge amount of models, and then you have a smaller amount of good makeup artists, and somehow when you go to the stylists, it's like a very, very little amount. Now, when I go to your house,
please don't go there.
You felt it coming, right?
Yeah.
How many rooms in your house are dedicated to storage?
I think, well, we have the attic, and that's very big.
So count that as 2.
Then I have the guest room.
That's 3.
Yeah, and then we have the living room, but my partner is not very glad with that. And shh, don't tell. Also the garage. So that's a lot of room.
How many dressers do you have at home?
I think 400 maybe.
I know that one day you came to me that you bought 200 at once.
Yeah, true. And that's only the dresses, because I also have trousers and corsets and a lot of hanging stuff before the windows, and things like blankets and
everything you
flowers
think you
and
can use.
yeah.
Somebody
everything.
said on the internet you can make anything from barbed wire to angel hair, right?
Yeah, true.
Okay, so now as a closer to this episode, what is your favorite image you did?
My favorite
Please
image.
make it be an image that I shot, because then I can show it on screen.
My favorite image is still a photo you shot, and it's a photo with not a lot of styling. It was from the start, when we went to trigger our creativity. I'm fond of music and 80s rock, but
I know where
also
you're going. That was our first
stuff.
photo shoot.
Yes, and when I did the pro-imaging with you, you said to me, you can choose a photo or a shoot. So I shouted, a shoot, please let me do a shoot. And the most models who can get a shoot of Frank, they wanted to be beautiful and pretty and things like that. But I said, well Frank, I want to do something special. I want to be a rock star. So I was a rock star. Even with a black band here and your guitar, I believe.
Yeah, you borrowed one of my guitars.
We made Sweat. It was not real. We made it. And I really loved it. It was my favorite shoot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not a lot styling there indeed. It was actually a pretty simple shot.
Yeah.
I think my favorite shot of you has to be the one that ended up at the cover of the Ellengrom.
Yeah.
Because there was so much luck involved. It was your creativity. It was such a cheap dress. And then with just a little bit of wind, just the right moment to click. And sometimes, and people don't realize that, to make a good shot, it really has to be in the milliseconds.
Yeah, true.
Because that dress moved everywhere. And actually, it covered your head. And at first we removed it from your head because it was like, otherwise I can't see your face.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, somehow in my head, it clicked and was like, okay, let it stick to your face. And then I believe we took 3 or 4 shots. We saw it, and normally I shoot more images, like, okay, let's make 1 or 2 images more. And I think at that moment I just laid down my camera and was like, we nailed it.
Yeah. But I think that day was a lucky day because we did, I think, 5 settings, and
also the window was from that day.
yeah, and also the one with the pink balloons in the room, and Not So Sweet 16 was also there. So that was a lucky, very lucky day.
We squeezed that one in. Now, you know, one of the problems you have when you're scouting locations, sometimes the best locations are actually in your own home. Now, the image you see now on screen is actually my old office. And my office was being remodeled. We got new wallpaper in, and that would have happened on one day. However, I saw my walls and was like, totally, all the wallpaper was torn off, and I was like, wait a minute, can you guys come back tomorrow night and do the rest of the remodeling, because I have a model here tomorrow and I want to shoot in this location. And they looked at me like real funny, like,
you're right.
Yeah, right. You don't want your office to be finished? And I was like, no, I have to do the shoot here. And I think I called you like, okay, can we do something in, let's imagine an abandoned building, because all the wallpaper were off. And you arrived there with some balloons, with a dress,
pink dress,
a pink dress, and
tiara.
I used the ring flash with the wide angle lens, so all the vignetting you see in the images is really from the ring flash and the wide angle. And I think we shot there for 5 or 10 minutes, and it went extremer and extremer. All the expression was there, and I think those are also one of my favorite images, because the expression is so strong there, and that's one of your strong points, I think.
Yeah. We also had a cover one time with glasses. That's also one
with the screaming one and the tilt and shift lens.
That's also one of my favorites. Also not a lot of styling, but just because of the glasses. And I love one of the songs of Elvis Costello on a single, I Want You, and he did that exactly. Only it was a black and white.
He screamed?
He screamed, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And that's why I said to you, oh, I want to do this, and so we came by that.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Nadine, and I think we'll be seeing you more and more in the future, because whenever you stop as a model, I think I have a great stylist in you.